Umbreon crashes, Gengar chokes, Giratina monster losses. How bad is it gonna get? Calculating the all-tar crash. Let's look at the numbers. Welcome back to the channel, everyone. I hope you are doing well. I myself am worried today. I am worried for all the good, kind, hard-working people that bought a PSA 10 Umbreon VMAX a month ago and are now shitting themselves. I'm worried for the dude who has 12 copies of Astral Radiance Beedrill he paid $50 each for, and finally, I am worried for whoever bought this Espeon card for $341 plus taxes. Yes, there is blood in the streets right now, and I know you're all thinking the same things. How bad is it going to get? How much money am I going to lose? And why, oh why, didn't I just buy Battle Styles booster boxes? Well, let's answer those questions, but I'm warning you, you might not like what you're about to hear. First things first though, we need to look at how we ended up here, and to do that, we need to wind the clock back to December 2023, or as I like to call it, the dark days. The alt-arts had crashed, the investors were beaten, we had lost, and everyone was jumping ship to One Piece, which didn't work out great in the end, by the way. But the night is always darkest just before the dawn, my friends, and at the end of January this year, something crazy happened. Suddenly, alt-art cards were up again, and not just a little bit, they were up 30, 40, 50%, and not just one, it was all of them. It was rainbow cards and trainer galleries too. Everyone wanted a piece of these hot singles. The dark days were over, and Pokemon was in an unprecedented bull market. Why did this happen? Well, in real life, Bitcoin and AI stocks, hello Nvidia, were going parabolic, and the S&P 500 hit all-time highs. It also happened to be tax return season, and everyone knows guys spend their tax return money on stuff they keep secret from their wives, like Pokemon cards. In the Pokemon world, the regulation change on E-Block cards arrived in April, and that coincided with many Swish booster boxes going out of stock on Pokemon Center and subsequently skyrocketing in price. Then Pokerev bumped up Umbreon, Cool Trainer Ryan pumped up the Blaziken, TCG player buyouts met the Hype Beast, and FOMO was set on autopilot. And people, they just couldn't get enough of alt-art cards. Some thought they'd be overnight millionaires buying them. Others, they just wanted to be part of something. And now, here we are. We're watching the inevitable pullback, the crash, the correction, whatever you want to call the thing that happens after an asset rises too fast and then goes down again. The question is, and it's probably why you guys clicked on this video, let's face it, what happens next? Well, they say history doesn't repeat itself, but it does rhyme. And we've seen this story before with waifu cards, and most recently with Sun and Moon alt-arts, which peaked around a similar time last year before dropping suddenly. For example, in the case of Latios and Latias, which is Sun and Moon era's Umbreon, we saw a 12% drop from all-time highs beginning in August 2023. Sound familiar? But comparing eras, you know, it's always dicey. I don't want to say that's going to be exact, especially pre and post pandemic. It's chalk and cheese. A good comparison, though, is PSA 10 populations. The PSA 10 pop on Latios and Latias is just shy of 1,400. Meanwhile, there's almost the same number of Shadow Rider Calyrex from Chilling Reign, and it only goes up from there, guys. The average PSA 10 count on the top 5 most expensive Swish alt-arts is 6,578. 6,578 compared to Latios and Latios of 1,400, and for every Latios and Latias PSA 10, there are 8 PSA 10 Umbreon, 8 to 1. Cue over 9 billion cards printed comments. There's over 9 billion! Thanks, Vegeta. Now, if demand outstrips supply, prices will sustain. But the pool of people willing to pay market price for a card that was 50% less at Christmas, it dries up eventually. And with prices tipping and values of Scarlet and Violet eras starting to get hot, not to mention focus shifting to whatever this new Team Rocket set is we have coming, it is likely we see a larger dip on Swish alt-arts than we did with Sun and Moon. How big will that dip be? Well, I predict we see something in the neighborhood of a 20% drop from the all-time highs, perhaps slightly more. And there are 4 reasons for this. Number 1, people will continue to take profits. I know I did. Number 2, other people will panic. Number 3, less established or inexperienced sellers buying at 70 or 80% of market value will race to the bottom to cover. And number 4, the drop last year was around 20%, and the general economic outlook with rising interest rates was far worse back then. A better outlook means people won't be as willing to take the loss. Ultimately, nobody knows the future. And of course, I am occasionally wrong, just ask my wife, but I'd say around a 20% haircut makes sense. Some cards are there already, others are on their way, and some, like the Evolutions, are still peaking. Just to give you some idea on how the drop will look though, here's the top 5 most expensive cards in a PSA 10 after the crash is done. And since we're talking about PSA 10, because of course no other grading companies exist apart from Professional Sports Authenticator, in PSA 10 alone, a 20% hit to the 3 most expensive cards would erase over $5 million of market cap. $5 million bucks down the drain. But look, it's not as bad as it sounds. It's only those FOMO chasers who bought at the top that are really hurting. If you purchased any Alt-Art card 6 months ago and you're holding, you are still up 20 or 30%. And sure, it's never nice to see prices go down so much, but corrections are a sign of a healthy market. Will things recover from here? Well, in the case of the Sun and Moon cards, we have seen a recovery already, just not to the heights of last summer, and not every card. And that's likely to be the trend here too as well. The higher profile cards will get all the attention, the big drops, but I expect prices on Swish to finally stabilize over the next 12 months as attention turns to the back 9 of Scarlet and Violet. Should you invest in these Swish Alt-Art cards right now? Well, let's do some real talk here, guys. If you are newer here, investments begin with establishing risk tolerances, setting budgets, goals, and timelines. Are your goals to collect cards, to hold them, or to flip them? If you're flipping, you probably want to offload fast, and if you're collecting, then just collect what you love. After all, these are truly incredible artworks. They capture a beautiful and mad moment in the hobby, but collecting and flipping are not investing. If you are planning to hold these long term, which I think many of you are, I genuinely don't see massive gains ahead from current levels. I'm sorry to say that. And if you're looking at some crazy vintage prices and you're thinking, we're heading there, just got to give it enough time, none of these cards will ever be a Gold Star Torchic. None of them will ever be a first edition Charizard. It just won't happen. There are plays to be made on singles, but my advice for investing is to always go with sealed product, booster boxes in particular. But remember, whatever you do, Pokemon investing should be part of a well-balanced investment portfolio. I really hope you enjoyed this video, guys. I hope you got some value and some laughs. Until next time, take it easy.